Well, hello and welcome back. And we're still down here at Woody's RV at the Calgary location. And we're actually doing our suspension travel test on this Overland series for the Ember RVs. So if you haven't already seen that video, be sure to head over to the main channel and check that one out. It's bound to be interesting. However, I want to take a minute to actually walk around the RV and point out a few key features that you may want to consider if you're looking at an RV for like any off-grid or off-road applications. If you live in mountainous environments, if you're in Canada or the northern states or Alaska, because a lot of these features are really going to favor those people who are maybe venturing beyond full hookups, and of course will still apply to campground camping as it is. But if that is something you're wanting to get into and you want to have a camper that is already set up and prepared and capable of doing that, this video is for you. So let's get around. So we're actually going to start our tour right here up on the tongue, and this is something that I think I've maybe only seen on a couple other campers, but I know it and associate it with Ember RVs. What you're probably accustomed to seeing here is like a plastic propane tank cover, but what Ember has actually chosen to do is make this all aluminum enclosure that on one side will house two 20-pound propane tanks. I did ask if it'll fit 30s, and I don't believe that it will. But in my experience thus far, you're gonna run out of power or water long before you're gonna run out of two 20-pound propane tanks, especially when they're coupled to energy efficient appliances, more specifically energy efficient heaters like the Truma Vario Heat. On the other side though, what you get when you have an Overland Series RV that's been equipped with the lithium-ion built-in batteries is a huge storage compartment that will fit like off-road recovery gear, tools, you know, etc. Like even your wheel chocks and stuff that right now as a Winnebago Micro Mini owner, I have to occupy storage space inside of here. Maybe you're like me and you want to run a macerator pump system for your black water and gray water tank management. All that stuff can live in here instead of eating up space in your pass-through. Not to mention, one thing that I particularly love is this spot up here. Now, in truth, I would actually like to see that there's a little backstop on here as opposed to the trailer itself, but you can honestly stack like wood or other accessories right up here and strap it down for transit, because again, if you don't have a pickup truck like us here on the channel where, you know, I carry like a whole, I don't know how many gallons it is, but like 120 liter tote full of firewood, you could honestly put enough firewood here for a couple of nights out for camping. So yeah, this is a really cool feature. And next we're actually gonna have a look up because we've already proven on the GREYWOLF 2 that the next feature is actually worthwhile. So we've come up here on the mezzanine because I want to show you the solar package. Now, one nice thing about having an 8-foot wide series trailer such as the Ember Overland is that you have a lot of real estate to mount solar panels. So this one's equipped with 600 watts of solar. I believe, referencing the Ember website, that their now base is 800 watts, and then you can upgrade to like a max solar for a total of 1200 watts. Of course, that may be subject to change. So this is being recorded in November of 2024. So just jump over to the Ember website for like the latest information on that. The other thing I want to point out here, because I've been talking about energy efficiency, is the Truma Aventa Eco, or actually that might be the non-Eco, that might be the standard Truma Aventa. The Truma Aventa air conditioner. It's not only very quiet, but it's also very energy efficient. The Ember RVs do come standard with one 270 amp hour Battleborn battery, which does have a built-in heating element. Again, that's something that is super important because lithium-ion batteries will not charge if their temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius. So those built-in heating elements, very few lithium-ion batteries have that. Again, Lithionics in the Winnebago Micro Mini has it, Battleborn has it, and I believe Dometic in their Go Power batteries, they have a 300 amp hour lithium-ion battery that has one as well. So those are the three that come to mind, but there's not a lot. So do your due diligence if you're shopping for, or cross-shopping your products, because that is important. Because if you go out in those extended conditions, you know, you can have all the solar in the world, but it's useless if you can't charge the battery. So let's make our way back down and yeah, we'll talk about what these fins here are doing around that skylight. All right, so if you have seen the two-part series where we went to Squamish and Whistler and spent 20 days off-grid camping and mountain biking out there, then you will have definitely seen a few shots of GREYWOLF 1 and 2 and I driving under some really low-hanging branches. In fact, I actually brought a saw on that trip just in case there was some fallen limbs that needed to be cleared off so we could actually fit under. What Ember's done up here, because of their like Exoframe style construction, is they've actually put these laser cut panels that rise up off the actual roof surface itself. And so if you have any low-hanging branches, it's gonna ride up and over that part as opposed to like up the fiberglass front cap that you would find on the Winnebago Micro Mini products. The other thing I kind of want to point out, and this is personally subjective, but I've really come to like this style of front cap. It does use the same wall material, so depending how that's constructed, there may or may not be like a reflective layer built into it. But I think it just really gives that like off-road aesthetic that this series of camper arguably deserves, as opposed to like a front molded cap where you could theoretically use this exact same floor plan and create two different variants, one having a traditional suspension and fiberglass front cap, you know, biased toward on-road and aerodynamics. This one sacrificing a little bit of aerodynamics for capability, such as like the big suspension travel and maybe a steeper pitch to it, but honestly, I don't see any reason why you couldn't make this just as equally aerodynamic. So yeah, maybe 2 points of interest here, but I definitely wanted to point that out. Now, it is worth mentioning, because Ember does install a skylight on the roof of this particular section here, these parts will also keep those low-hanging branches from grinding across and scratching the acrylic of those skylights. So there is kind of like a dual function, but yeah, cool to see nonetheless. Not an original thought. In fact, the new Bronco, if you're a Bronco fan as I am, they've even designed like the front hood attachments to run cables to keep branches from like scratching the windshield and hood of the new Ford Bronco. So same idea, but yeah, let's come in here and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so this is what I have been banging on all year about. This is a Nautilus system. Now this one is the P2.5, which I'm not super familiar with myself. However, what this system can be capable of in other iterations, maybe the 2.5, maybe not. I'll kind of put a caption on the bottom of the screen if it isn't. But what you can do with the Nautilus is siphon from a tank. So whereas I have to stand at the side of my RV with like a blue jug and, you know, pour it into my freshwater tank when I want to top up water, what the Nautilus systems are capable of, or versions thereof, are a siphon function where theoretically you can throw a hose off the side of like a bridge and suck up fresh mountain, you know, running stream or water, or down to a glacial lake. You know, let your imagination run wild on that, because typically the pumps built into RV trailers are capable of like 10 feet of what's called hydrostatic head, so that can lift 10 feet of water up a pipe. So use that with a bit of grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt? Yeah, something like that. Nevertheless, if you have a 25 liter, for example, or a 50 liter, or an in-bed tote or anything, then those siphon systems, you don't have to stand there and manually pour it into your freshwater tank. We can see here that Ember has also enclosed the black and gray water tank valves, which is great to see, because this actually will remain heated and less prone to freezing. And what's really, really good to see is this style of shower. Now, it's all made by the same company, B&B. However, on the Winnebago Micro Mini products, you're stuck with like a fixed plastic arm, whereas this chuck style can be used for other creative uses. So something that I've considered doing is taking this and having a short lead that will rinse out the conduit, that common tube when you're draining your black and gray water, so you don't have that like really gross stagnant water in there. I mean, yeah, you always drain your black first, but even still, like, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to clean that out. And if you have an elbow, as I do, or a master pump, as I also do, that's something that you could consider, especially with like a check valve in place. But yeah, water management all built in, super nice. And then down here in the bottom are a couple of rubber grommets where you can actually run your hoses straight through, and they will also double as drain valves. So this here, overall, a really good system. Cool, let's move on. So when I said move on, I guess I really should have said just turn around, because I want to point this out, and subscribers of the channel, especially those who have watched the Winnebago Micro Mini HVAC deep dive series video will know exactly what this is. This is the exhaust and intake for the Truma Vario heat furnace. And what's really, really nice about this furnace is, one, it is incredibly efficient because of its tube-in-tube heat exchanger design. For more info, go check out that video. And nevertheless, when I was talking about the capacity at the front for two 20-pound propane tanks, my experience using this for a year now is that 220s is more than sufficient. And quite honestly, depending on your tow vehicle, I don't really know if I want to add, an extra 100 pounds of like direct ton weight. So this is wicked to see, and something again to look for, high efficiency appliances. So, all right, wicked. Now let's move on. All right, I'm going to dip my toe into the pond of controversy and talk about slide systems. Now, this is using the BAL Exact Slide, and BAL is a brand that I personally really like and have a lot of faith in. I don't have enough personal experience to give me confidence when it comes to cable slide systems and what I would do in the event of a failure. I'm sure there are people, industry experts, that know a lot more about slide systems than I do, but believe it or not, I actually like the rack style slides. That's not to say that I like the Schwintek slide system, which the Micro Mini I have is utilizing, but I believe they've actually switched up and are using a different style for 24-25. It was like a running change. I'll put that down here somewhere. That design inherently isn't bad, but somebody actually told me that a lot of the problems associated with the Schwintek, those rack style slide systems, actually go back onto poor craftsmanship and build quality, because it's reliant, and it makes sense, it's reliant upon the box being box shaped. And I know that sounds like a simple task, but believe me when I say that, yeah, getting things square is not always as straightforward or easy for some manufacturers than others. And so then that's when you run into tolerance issues where those gears are meshing with that slide system. Again, the Schwintek, I'm aware of another slide system that aesthetically appears identical, but it greatly improves upon that system. And that's something that I would actually like to see in the future, because I have more confidence in being able to pull back the rubber gusseting and stick a wrench in there and be able to manually close the slide should I ever experience an issue on the road. So just wanted to point this out. BAL Exact Slide cable operated slide system. Yeah, you do you. All right, so ducking underneath the slide system here. Next, I want to point out that this Ember Overland series is equipped with this Kurt independent long travel suspension. Again, I'm not going to share the details because at the time of recording, I don't know the details, but that video will already be out by now, so be sure to go check that out, where we actually, myself and the folks down here at Woody's RV Calgary, test to see exactly how much static travel this system has. Nevertheless, a long travel, especially an independent suspension system on a overland, whatever type off-grid, off-road trailer is what you really want to see. What's interesting is that Ember has also chosen to include these. This is like a proprietary wheel lock system. I've never seen it before. I don't know if it's a Kurt product or if it's like an Ember RV exclusive design. But we know, as I have, that often you're camping in some precarious places where you really don't want your wheel chocks to fail, most especially if you're leveling out your trailer and you're driving up onto blocks. The traditional under wheel chocks are just ineffective. I myself use a combination of those rubber chocks in addition to the BAL X-Chock system, which effectively is a friction lock between the two tires. But I've seen this system actually being utilized and engaged and disengaged And I'm very confident that this is actually very effective. Would I trust the trailer to just one system? No, that's a personal thing. It says nothing about this performance or ability, but yeah, it's super cool to see. How much cost though this externalizes onto the customer? That's a bit of a question mark for me, especially considering that, again, as mentioned with the BALX shock system, there are alternatives out there, but if it's no more than like $150 Canadian, let's say, externalized onto the customer, it's super cool to have, and maybe you can, forego the traditional X shocks, but even then the X shocks also help with the rocking sensation that it's induced when you're moving throughout the trailer. So yeah, interpret from that what you will. Before we move on, also pointing out Goodyear Wrangler tires, name brand tire, might I add. So super cool to see. Beyond that, oh, this is neat. Okay, so this is like a aluminum powder coated underbelly. This is actually kind of impressive because I can tell that it's about 2.5, 3 millimeters thick. So if you do experience a blowout, a lot of trailers, again, the Winnebago Micro Mini included, utilize like a fairly thin galvanized steel under here. I especially don't like the galvanized steel because it's silver and it just sticks out like a sore thumb. But actually, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but I have a lot of faith if you were to experience the dreaded tire blowout, that this is actually going to do a very good job in protecting your RV. So yeah, that's cool to see. I'm impressed. All right, moving on. All right, making our way around the back of the trailer, there's about 3 things I'd like to point out. First and foremost, I had a peek behind the cover, and it is actually a Goodyear Wrangler tire, so that's nice to see that Ember didn't take this as an opportunity to put an inferior product as your lifeline on the back. Number 2, we see that Ember does use the telescopic style ladder system. I'm not personally a fan for 2 reasons. First, you have to store the thing somewhere. Second, especially if you go up there in the rain or whatever, I just don't find them to be as sturdy or as reliable as a fixed ladder system, especially when there's the opportunity and the real estate back here to have it. Maybe not on this side, but certainly here. So that was obviously an Ember decision. But to make up for that, they have actually included back here behind the friction hinge door a 2-inch accessory receiver. Now, longtime subscribers of the channel will know that I did a series called A Mountain Biker's Perspective. We're not looking at this trailer necessarily from a mountain biker's perspective, which is why it's called the GREYWOLF perspective. But if you plan on bringing bicycle or bicycles with you on a trip and you're looking at a conventional tow trailer, ask yourself where those bikes are going to go. Because if your RV doesn't have a 2-inch accessory receiver back here for a hitch mount bike rack, then they're going on or in your tow vehicle, especially when the front cap is already utilized. I have seen some systems that try to mount bikes on the front tongue. I've personally tried that and I will never do it again. I found it to be insecure, etc. One thing that Ember would like you to know though is that if you have really expensive bicycles or other toys, etc., you can always, on this particular floor plan with this accessory door, put them inside the trailer, but not every floor plan is going to have this. So this is going to be highly situationally dependent. But generally speaking, I believe all of the Overland RVs are going to have this. So 2-inch accessory receiver, big plus. And just to give you kind of an example of how you might utilize this in the field, if you have a hitch mount bike rack as I do, you tow your trailer and bikes down the road with the bikes on the back here. Once you get to camp, you can drop your trailer, unhook it, as is the joy of a towable product, put that bike rack on your tow vehicle, and then go off to all the trailheads in the area, which is exactly what I do. So you're not burdened or stuck, only riding where your trailer is. So yeah, so often do I feel that RV manufacturers take small trailers as an opportunity to give you fewer features because they're trying to position or draw the correlation that a smaller trailer is a budget-oriented trailer, and I vehemently disagree with that. But I'll die on that hill another day. Let's keep going. All right, a couple more features to see on this side of the trailer. First and foremost are these dual pane acrylic windows. Not only are they far superior in terms of R value, now in context, the single pane windows really don't do much of anything in terms of thermal resistance like R value and sound deadening, but anything is better than those. Generally speaking, as I understand it, I think the single pane glass windows are like an R value of 0.9, and these are quoted in like the R 3.6, but I will certainly take like a 350% improvement over that. Not to mention anything dual pane is going to do a much superior job at noise isolation. So we've all seen the beautiful pictures of people camping down by the river. Yeah, the sound of a rushing river can and does get a little old. So when you go in the trailer, it's nice to have that sound reprieve, you know, while still having your view. Also, this is going to be much better, again, if you're in those cooler climates or mountain environments, because as you increase in elevation, it gets colder. And even out here, as soon as the sun dips behind the peaks in the afternoon, the temperature precipitously starts dropping. I think I pronounced that correctly. A little fun stat that I like to share with people is that I believe it's in June, the average nighttime low for Banff, Alberta, Canada is +1. So even if you're only a June, July, August kind of camper, you can and still will benefit from these windows, which are a monetary upgrade over a single pane glass window. So yeah, wicked to see. Right behind me, number 2, solid steps. I debated personally about whether or not I preferred the solid step versus the drop down. My thought process was, if these were muddy, then you're flicking that mud up into your trailer. Having driven down like the first gravel road, I can 100% tell you that all the steps at the bottom do is just rattle and make your whole trailer sound super clunky when you're driving down the road. So yeah, not a good look. Solid steps also have, you know, the third step down here where I only have the 2. So when I was camping and have been camping in a lot of like really not level areas, that third drop, yeah, you got to be careful. It's an ankle breaker. So solid steps, yeah, definitely good to hear. Good to hear, good to see. I'm losing it. All right, one final feature and then we'll wrap up. So before we wrap up our tour of the Ember Overland Series RV, I want to talk about this. And again, I always try to tie it back to personal experiences. So on that Squamish Whistler off-grid off-road trip that we did, I ended up building up my mountain bike out there. So I brought my bike stand with me, but I didn't have a table. I would love to get like maybe one of those super ultra lightweight packable fold-up tables, because the Micro Mini similarly has fairly limited pass-through storage. But this is cool to see. I don't know if I've ever seen it anywhere else, but what Ember has done here is, instead of the baggage door opening upwards and having the magnetic hold back here, they have it flipped down and then are using 2 little carabiners and some stainless steel cabling to provide like a work surface. So you can effectively do anything here, but especially like when it comes to RVs, I know the kind of joke is like, if you're gonna buy an RV, then you need to be reasonably handy so that you can and will encounter field repairs. And so having like a nice dedicated work surface, I can think of so many times where I could have used this, especially just, you know, doing a task like building a bike or tuning it up. You know, I could have had all my like lubricants and greases or tools or whatever, you know, laid out here as opposed to spread out over the ground, which is essentially what happened for myself. And then last but not least, I want to point out the thickness of the door here. So just like on the Micro Minis, we're dealing with a 1-inch thick baggage door, which is going to be really thermally efficient. So you're not going to get like a super cold air situation under here, because as is often the case, this trailer included, you're sleeping right on top of it. So it's always nice to know that you're not sleeping on top of like that bridge effect, as they would say. I would personally like to see the slam latch doors on here. Can't have it all, but yeah. So again, this is not meant to be a specific review on this particular floor plan. It's meant to introduce you to what Ember is doing on their Overland series as it might apply to people looking, you know, like myself, looking to take it off-grid, off-road, you know, into these like really cool environments that we like to do. So if you have any particular specific questions, let me know. Also, a bit of context, this does happen to be a 2023 model, so there may have been some subtle differences with 24 and 25 with Ember products. So if I've said anything that is incorrect, again, I'll do my best to fact check that at home. But yeah, this is what we have. So if you're interested in other off-grid, off-road RV products, be sure to hit that subscribe button because there's more coming. So this is certainly not it. And if you've made it this far in the video, please click that like button. It really helps the algorithm show this video to other people. So thank you very much as always. I sincerely do appreciate it. You take care. and bye for now.